Yo, I'm just Lorenzo, and I've always believed you should keep your friends close. But more importantly, you should keep your enemies even closer. And I think it's time we got to know your enemy in The Witcher 3. Let's get stuck in. The enemy in The Witcher 3 are no easy lot to contend with. They take the form of hardened bandits and army deserters, two deadly wildlife and monstrous monstrosities from beyond your darkest nightmares. A Witcher must know how to prepare for and combat every enemy he faces, both normal and unnatural. But don't let that put you off. It's time we face these monstrosities head on as we meet and defeat the monsters of the Northern Kingdoms. Once upon a time, wolves were the absolute rulers of the forest. Men used them to frighten children, while adults too trembled at the sound of their howling. Post-conjunction monsters not only pushed wolves into the deepest wilds, but also took over their place in human nightmares. Yet, this does not mean that the old predator ceased to be a danger. Wolves do not have a drop of magic within them, breathe no fire, and spit no acid. But that in no way stops them from killing unwary travellers and hunters. Wolves hunt in packs and coordinate with one another in order to surround their choice of prey. Though wolves are weaker than many post-conjunction monsters, they make up for any lack of strength with their intelligence. If one finds himself surrounded, you can use the Igni and Ard sign to try and drive the pack off, even if just for a moment, which allows the Witcher to recover some of their stamina and or regain control over the fight. Bears are generally found far from human habitation, either in the high mountains or in the deep woods. Opposite of dogs and wolves, bears are solitary creatures, which is probably for the best considering how strong a killing machine they are. It is a simple enough thing to avoid fighting a bear, but that is not always the case. A bear may be clumsy, but they run at high speeds despite their bulky sizes, so running away may not always be an option, especially if you have already angered the bear. Any bear will prove to be an admirable foe. They possess great vitality, amazing strength, and are quick to anger if you find yourself within their territory. It is best to avoid a head-on attack with a bear. Try and dodge the swipes of their claws and cut at their flanks. Lgsi is a perfect choice against a bear since bears are almost always found alone. One cast and it's stunned, letting you get in a couple of good hits before it counter-attacks. And then you can dodge backwards out of range, then wait until your stamina recharges and repeat until dead. Look. Botchlings are perhaps the most repulsive creatures a Witcher will ever have the displeasure of meeting. It is a small creature resembling a highly deformed fetus, created from the improper burial of unwanted stillborn infants, that preys on pregnant women while hiding beneath beds. Botchlings sap the expectant mother of strength, and once she is completely defenseless, it will latch on and directly feed off blood, killing both her and the unborn child. A botchling stands around 1.5 feet in height, but when threatened, and if gorged with blood, it can change form. At such times, it grows into a deformed man, hunched over and striding ape-like on its forearms. Stronger and fiercer after this alteration, it hurls itself into direct physical combat, gnashing at its opponent or attacking him with sharp claws. Using Lgsi will make the botchling retract his spikes for a short time, allowing one to safely strike at them. Werewolves are creatures with both men and wolves inside them. When in beastly form, they take on the worst traits of each. The wolf's drive to kill and the hunger for raw flesh, and the man's cruel and calculating intelligence. A werewolf's condition comes about through a curse, and the transformation happens outside his conscious control. When he reverts to human form, he has no memory of his deeds. Otherwise, he would surely go mad and take his own life. Werewolves are active at night, particularly when the moon is full. Though they hunt alone, when threatened they will summon wolves to aid them. Werewolves rarely feel the need to flee, for few adversaries put up much of a fight against them. They strike as swiftly as lightning, with claws sharp as razors, and regenerate any damage received in mere moments. When fighting werewolves, a witcher should wield a blade covered in oil harmful to the cursed ones, and have a large supply of devil puffs handy. A werewolf's curse can at times be lifted, yet there is no universal surefire method for doing this. A witcher seeking to undertake such a task must there equip himself with a great deal of patience and sturdy armour. These breeds of cursed creatures are quite fast and very lethal. They can jump great distances and at such high speeds that defending yourself against one can be challenging at best. Utilising the sign Yrden can be one of your best tools in avoiding their attacks. Contrary to popular belief, basilisks cannot turn anything to stone with their gaze. That is small comfort, however, given that their acid venom, claws and teeth provide them many other ways to kill. Basilisks love dark, damp places, such as cellars, caves and city sewers. They hunt by day, waiting patiently and hiding for their prey to come, then jump out in a flash to unleash a deadly attack. When preparing to fight such a creature, one should drink golden oral, which will provide resistance to its venom, and also prepare dancing star or shrapnel bombs, which work particularly well against basilisks. Despite their appearances, basilisks are vulnerable to igni and other means of using fire against them, such as dancing star bombs. A well-timed bomb or burst of igni can not only bring down a flying basilisk to ground level, but distract the beast from being able to properly defend itself. They are skilled at using their wings and the talons on their feet, in a similar fashion to that of a cockatrice. While in combat with witches, they have been observed parrying sword strikes with their wings and then leaping up into the air to land near devastating overhead blows with their claws. They can also leap up into the air, hover momentarily, and spit acid at their opponents from above. Foolish superstitions claim cockatrices, like basilisks, can kill with their gaze alone. This is utter nonsense, however, as a cockatrice's gaze being no more dangerous than that of an angry goose. One should instead watch out for its sharp beak and long tail, which it can whip to murderous effect. Cockatrices thrive in dark caves, abandoned ruins, cobweb dungeons, and old basements. Though small compared to griffins and manticores, they are more than capable of killing anyone who stumbles across them in a dark corridor. Cockatrices do not shun direct fights, in which they strike ferociously with wing and tail in an attempt to exhaust their foes. Blows from their beaks are especially dangerous as they aim with deadly precision at exposed flesh and vital organs, and leave bleeding, life-threatening wounds. When fighting them, one should make liberal use of draconid oil as well as grape shot, whose shrapnel will pierce their delicate wings with ease. You are definitely going to find this one annoying to deal with, as it effectively combines the speed, flight and ferocity of a harpy with some of the power and toughness of a golem. A cockatrice will fight aggressively once the fight begins. To take advantage of this aggression and force them to remain on the ground, you should use hard and or grape shot to your benefit. The best attack is to try and flank the cockatrice, ideally getting behind its wings to hit it in the back. It can't do a rapid turn, and most, if not all of its wide range attacks will miss, so it has been possible to put an unending series of fast attacks from here while constantly moving to stay behind it, and remain unharmed while inflicting catastrophic damage. Forktails owe their quaint name to the long sharp growths at the tip of their tails. A blow from this weapon can slice an oaken shield in two, along with the arm that was carrying it. Thus, though its name conjures images of cutlery, fighting a forktail is nothing like a dinner party and ends in death rather than dessert. Like all draconids, their massive size does not stop them from quickly flying up and then counterattacking from the air. They are able to use their weight and height to their advantage as they attack from the air, knocking their prey over with their wings. Once the forktails are on the ground, they are somewhat less mobile, but still quite dangerous. They turn to other tactics, centered around their massive size and spike-covered tails. The stinger on the tip of their tail are highly poisonous, and because of this, golden oral is essential. They will use their tails aggressively while in combat, and the only counter is to try and evade these attacks. However, do not become so preoccupied with the tail that you forget its head. Bites from the forktail come as near lightning speeds, but can be parried and countered. Wyverns are often mistaken for dragons, and though they are much smaller than their more famous kin and do not breathe fire, they are likewise extremely dangerous monsters. Typically, a wyvern will attack from the air, attempting to knock its prey down using its wings. After it lands, it will attack with its tooth-filled beak, in an attempt to draw attention away from its most deadly weapon, the stinger, that can be found at the end of its long tail. A single strike from this carries a risk of poisoning from powerful toxins. Even a witcher will experience wrenching pain when injected with the venom, so preparing ahead of time with golden oral is suggested. Wyverns will fly around their prey, well beyond crossbow range, before they will swoop down at breakneck speeds in an attempt to claw at their victim. Ard and grapeshot can bring a wyvern to the ground, though they are tough enough to be resistant to crossbow bolts, but other more lethal munitions can force it to the ground. Once on the ground, a wyvern will prefer to strike with the talons on its feet, its teeth and its tail. It is possible to parry these bites, but if unsuccessful, the consequences can be deadly. They don't appear to be very good at dodging while on the ground. An unending series of fast attacks can seem to keep them off balance, so they don't attack right to the point that they die.
Not good.
made of mud, clay, sand and rock dust, clumped together with water and brought alive with magic. While seemingly slow and ponderous, these creatures are nevertheless dangerous and should be avoided at all costs. Earth elementals can withstand a tremendous amount of punishment. Due to their enormous mass, they are virtually impossible to knock off balance. They do not bleed nor feel any pain from poison or even fire. They kill men with astonishing ease, whether by smashing them with their fists or hurling enormous stones at them. Their only weakness is their vulnerability to dimeritium dust. Thus, before combat, one should prepare a full arsenal of bombs containing this ingredient. Earth elementals are a test of strength and endurance. Even with a silver sword coated in elemental oil, Earth elementals can resist impressive amounts of punishment before crumbling, while being able to dish out frighteningly powerful blows with their fists. Lgsi and Igni also have a limited effect, and ARD will only do a very brief stragger, if you're lucky. Dimeritium bombs make these elementals more susceptible to harm, they do not make them less dangerous. Quen is definitely your best option against these. You'll be able to use an attack combo right through its slow single powerful attacks and put multiple hits on it before having to back off, then wait for it to recharge and repeat. Alternatively, if you do not wish to spam a Quen shield, then you should use Quen then switch to ARD. ARD is quite useful to stop the elemental in its tracks. It is a small stagger, but it will stop it from attacking, and the stagger can be used to the witch's advantage to start up a whirl attack or perhaps get a heavy attack in or two. Fire is the most destructive of all the elements, thus the aggressive lethality of the creature that embodies its essence should come as no surprise. Fire elementals are forged in complicated magic rituals for one purpose: destruction. And they pursue this with murderous determination. This elemental attacks using fireballs and streams of flame, which reduce anything in their path to ashes in the blink of an eye. Like golems and other elementals, poison does not touch it, nor does it bleed. Fire-based spells do not harm it, but in fact strengthen it. Thus one should by no means think of striking it with Igni. Though vulnerable to silver blades, getting within sword's reach of one is dangerous due to the furnace-like heat they emit. When fighting a fire elemental, one should thus strike from a distance, using frost spewing and dimeritium bombs, for they will do the most damage. Fire elementals can use similar abilities to earth elementals, with the key difference that fire enhances and empowers them. Being harmed by a fire elemental has effects beyond the immediate harm sustained, since they can light clothing and armor on fire. Simply drawing close to a fire elemental is dangerous due to the intense heat they constantly generate. The flames can be temporarily extinguished by ARD. Ice elementals are a mass of frozen water animated by magic. Deprived of consciousness or independent will, this elemental is boundlessly obedient to the orders of the mage who created it. Those orders usually containing but one syllable: kill. Ice elementals have no qualms about carrying out this order, nor any particular difficulty in doing so. Gifted with incredible strength, they are completely invulnerable to poison and fire. Deprived of sensitive organs, hard as permafrost, and all in all incredibly difficult opponents. A witch's only chance at tipping the scale towards victory is to toss a dimeritium bomb. Shrapnel made of this metal interferes with the workings of the spell that gives this creature life. Beyond that remains only prayer. Ice elementals fight similarly to earth elementals. They can strike with their massive fists, stomp on the ground to knock over their target, or send a ripple of ice carving through the terrain at their foes. Golems are mindless matter brought to life by a spell. They obey their creator's orders without question. Their boundless strength, ability to withstand pain, endless patience, and the fact that they need not one jot of food or drink makes them the best servants or guards anyone could ask for. Once provoked, they will not tire of battle until they have either crushed their opponent or themselves crumbled to dust. Defeating a golem is extraordinarily difficult, for obvious reasons. It does not bleed, it feels no fear or mercy, and it is invulnerable to fire and poisons. What's more, a golem's body is as hard as the rock it is sometimes heft out of, so even a silver blade will barely wound it. The monster's only weakness is acid. A blade covered in arachnid oil can thus increase one's chances of victory. Golems use no weapons, for they have no need. Their fists weighing over 100 pounds each can crush solid granite with one hit. A blow from a golem should thus be avoided at all costs, as there is no shield that can stop it, nor sword that can parry it. That is no easy task, for these creatures are able to move with surprising speed. Luckily enough, their enormous mass means that they are not very agile. Once a golem begins to charge, it cannot stop quickly, a fact experienced witches can use for their advantage. Yrden is useful when going toe-to-toe with a golem, but remember that the golem is merely slowed, not helpless. They can still fight despite Yrden's effect, that can still interrupt a witch's swordplay with a single crushing blow. As with the elementals, a golem can pound the ground with such ferocity, anyone standing nearby is knocked prone. Gargoyles are stone statues brought to life by magic in order to guard mages' laboratories and lairs from intruders. Their appearance alone has scared off more than one prospective burglar. Those who do not take fright at the sight of these horned and winged monstrosities usually die shortly thereafter, torn to shreds by stony claws. Gargoyles are extremely dangerous opponents. Etched out of granite or marble, they are able to withstand tremendous amounts of damage and exhibit superhuman strength. One blow dealt from their boulder-like fists will crush even a man clad in heavy armor. Not even those out of reach of a gargoyle's arms can feel safe, for they are able to throw hunks of stone with deadly precision. A gargoyle is nearly as sturdy as the earth elemental, but significantly faster, more versatile, and seemingly more intelligent. Ard, Lgsi, and Igni are almost entirely useless. Gargoyle melee attacks may not have the same reach, but they cannot be parried. Evade them. Yrden can slow a gargoyle down, making it easy to evade their melee attacks and allow a witcher to strike back. Do not linger in front of a gargoyle for long. They can counter overly aggressive witches by using their poisonous breath. Your best option for fighting one of these is with Quen. Turn it on and wade in with sword swinging. You'll be able to take the stomp shockwave with no damage and not getting staggered, and should be able to get multiple hits in before you have to roll away. If you see it raise its arms, it's going to do a melee combo and you'll only handle the first hits, so roll away, rinse and repeat. Hounds of the Wild Hunt are born, or so some experts believe, of magic ice crystals. The Hounds of the Wild Hunt race alongside their spectral masters like ravenous feral dogs. They are capable of only mindless attacking whatever crosses their path. The Hound's icy nature also means they can draw strength from extreme cold, thus one should be particularly on guard when fighting them during blizzards or in glacial regions. The hounds' chief weapons are their claws and teeth. Their battle tactics rely on knocking their opponents to the ground before tearing them to shreds. Badly wounded hounds fall into a kind of frenzy that adds to their deadly might. These beasts also use their power over the cold to freeze the ground around them and create sharp spikes of ice. Creatures born of frost, they feel pain from the Igni sign. There is also reason to believe Lgsi can momentarily weaken their drive to kill and somewhat weaken these fierce foes. These hounds hunt in packs and can quickly overwhelm the unprepared. Do not let them surround you. If at all possible, use Yrden to slow any hounds too close for comfort and break away if needed. If Yrden can catch multiple hounds in one circle, throwing in a Dragon's Dream Bomb and igniting the gas cloud of Igni can seriously wound a large group of hounds. Griffins were once found high in the mountains, where they would hunt marmots and wild goats. When humans encroached on their lands, however, griffins soon discovered a new source of much more plentiful and easier caught prey: cows, sheep, and shepherds. Though still wary of main roads and towns, these half-eagle, half-wildcat creatures have gone from rarities to often encountered pests known throughout the northern realms. Especially hated are the subspecies known as royal griffins and arch griffins. Griffins find their victims using their extraordinarily perceptive sense of smell. After drawing near to their chosen target, they attack by swooping down from great height. Their muscular mass, combined with their swift speed, means this blow alone is often enough to end the fight. If, however, the victim survives this aerial assault, Griffin will immediately engage it in direct combat, making use of its sharp curved beak and powerful talons. The wounds it deals are deep and cause powerful bleeding. Even worse, Griffins do not have any true weaknesses, except for their vulnerability to hybrid oil and certain kind of bombs. Griffins use a high-pitched roar that can knock its opponents off balance. They will leap at their target from great distance in order to tackle their prey. Attacks from a griffin will cause bleeding. The Quen sign or swallow potion can be used to counter bleed effects. It's best to keep a griffin within melee range so that it can't use its tackle ability. A griffin's tackle can be difficult to avoid, easily ending in death. Each swipe from its wings talon can be predicted by the wing being raised into the air. Try to attack the griffin from the side to inflict damage where it is unprotected. It is hard to say what is most repulsive about harpies: their hideous appearance, the overwhelming stench of rot and bird excrement that clings to them, or their blood-curdling screech. Harpies hunt in flocks, consisting of a handful to up to 20 individuals. Though rather cowardly and cautious, harpies fiercely defend their nests and will not hesitate to attack when outnumbering their foes. During combat, they will use their ability to fly to dive swiftly to strike their victims one by one before soaring back up out of reach. They can kill with their wings or sharp beak and talons, but once on the ground they move slowly and clumsily and thus no longer present much of a threat. Like many other swarming enemies such as wolves or drowners, individual harpies are quite weak, fragile and easy to deal with. Problem is, you almost never deal with an individual harpy. In some ways, they're more annoying than land-based swarming monsters because as you're focusing your attention on one or two in front of you, several others are flying around where you can't see them and can suddenly swoop in out of nowhere from quite a distance away from you and hit you from behind. Like skilled hunters setting out wooden ducks to lure in drakes, sirens lure men near using their own bodies as decoys. They can transform to resemble beautiful human maidens, though with tails covered in silver scales instead of legs. Once a naive sailor gets within arm's reach of these beautiful creatures, their fair faces suddenly turn to fang-filled fish-like mouths, and lovely tails promising unknown delights become sharp, death-dealing talons. Once legend claims sirens were once friendly towards men. In our day, however, they are decidedly aggressive. Perhaps whatever the truth, one thing is certain. These days, the monsters display no signs of goodwill, and so when spotting them, one should immediately reach for one's silver sword. Sirens usually hunt in flocks, making use of their numbers as well as their ability to move effortlessly through water and air. On the ground, however, they are virtually defenseless, and so a wise tactic is to damage their fin-like wings to force them to land. The Igni sign also proves effective when fighting against them. Threatened or injured, sirens will let out a terrifying shriek, leaving their opponents stunned while they escape, and their sisters swoop down for an easy attack.
Come on! You shouldn't have come here.
Who ordained so?
It's a human city. Belongs to them, and I protect them from the likes of you.
So it's true what they say about witches. You're but murderers for hire.
Unlike other monsters, succubus feel no desire to kill, do not crave human blood, and usually do not in fact mean any harm at all. They are motivated by one thing and one thing only, an insatiable lust. They try in vain to slake this by engaging in sexual acts with other humanoid species they encounter. While it must be admitted that their victims rarely put up much resistance, this does not mean that the succubi do not present any danger. Their never-ending advances, though pleasurable at first, have pushed more than one man to madness, or even death. Though succubus are peaceful by nature, when forced to fight, they will defend themselves fiercely. One should thus not be fooled by their fair appearance. Under that velvet skin of their arms lie muscles of iron, and a blow delivered with their rear goat-like legs, or the thick horn on their head, can easily crush bone. Should a witcher choose to slay a succubus, they must act quickly. Succubi are known for their surprising brute strength. A witcher will succeed in slaying a succubus if they can pin them down and unleash a flurry of silver sword strikes. Endrega workers are most often found travelling in groups of half a dozen or more members. They move slowly, yet when attacking, they are capable of covering the distance to their victim in the blink of an eye. Like all of their kind, Endrega workers are highly venomous. Their bite is toxic, as are the wounds dealt by the bony growths at the end of their limbs. They can also spew acid to great effect from a distance of several paces. Their usual tactic is to surround their enemy and attack him from several sides at once. Like all insectoids, they do not suffer particularly from bleeding, yet are caused great harm by insectoid oil. The pincers and forearms of a worker are venomous, but they can be parried to open the worker up to further attacks. Workers can be surprisingly troublesome to inexperienced witches, thanks to the speed with which they can use their claws, sidestep their attacks to bring their flanks within reach. Endrega males, called drones, are gluttonous creatures whose only aim in life is to eat, fight, and reproduce. Yet, when venturing outside their nests, these aggressive hunters attack any and every creature they come across. Drones are easily to identify thanks to their distinct cone-shaped abdomens. Unlike other Endregas, they can attack from a distance, sending out volleys of poisonous quills. As with all of their kind, bleeding has no effect on them, and insectoid oil does them great harm. Golden oral can neutralize the poison and prevent aggravated damage from the wounds. Drones are extremely aggressive and territorial. Once they get close, they try to stay close. If multiple drones are present, northern wind bombs can halt one or two of the beasts, giving witches a moment to regain control of the situation. Yrden is also useful to contain drones. Endregas do not bleed as profusely as men, and witches do. It takes several good swings to crack their natural armor. Endrega warriors live only to fight, and they get ample opportunity to do so while defending the colony's borders or conquering new territory. An Endrega warrior's main weapon is its long tail, which is tipped with a club-like growth and spiked with venomous quills. Powerful abdomen muscles allow it to swing this tail with enough force to kill most lesser opponents in one blow. Endrega warriors also use their mass and strength as a weapon by charging their opponents in an attempt to knock them over. As invertebrates with sectioned carapaces, Endrega warriors do not bleed profusely, yet recoil in great pain when hit with a blade coated in insectoid oil. By far the most effective tactic against them is using the Lgsi stunning guerrilla warfare technique, stunning them with the sign and then getting several hits in, then backing off and keeping out of range until your stamina recovers, then repeat. Powerful pincers, a mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth and venom glands packed with deadly toxins. These creatures constitute the ARACHAS' deadly arsenal. Since people and farm animals make up an important part of these creatures' diet, contracts on ARACHAS in turn constitute an important source of witcher coin. At first glance, a stationary ARACHAS often looks like part of the forest undergrowth, a fact it uses to deadly advantage when hunting. It usually begins a battle by spitting venom, then tries to grab its prey with prehensile feelers in order to drag it within reach of its crushing pincers. The ARACHAS hits hard, plus its attacks are laced with poison. If witches attempt to run away or keep distance from the overgrown spider, it will respond by shooting a sticky web stream which binds the witcher in place for a few seconds, allowing the ARACHAS to charge in. Blindly hacking away at the ARACHAS from the front is unwise, as it will cover itself with its pincers to mitigate damage and open the witcher up to vicious counterattacks which can knock down. Because of its size, Ard isn't going to knock it down, no matter how high the sign intensity. The other signs are effective. Igni can immobilate the ARACHAS, allowing witches to get 1 to 2 strong hits. When nullifies the damage from one attack. Yrden slows the insect down to facilitate flanking, and Lgsi keeps the ARACHAS pacified long enough to get into position for a slash at its less protective rear. An armoured Arachas is a true behemoth. It uses its enormous mass to knock over and trample its victims, then devours their crushed remains. Like all Arachases, it is highly venomous, and this golden oral should always be consumed before fighting it. Once provoked, Arachases of both varieties quickly attempt to close the gap between them and their prey, either by skittering across the ground, leaping at their victim, or by spitting a sticky secretion and dragging the unlucky soul to them. In close combat, an Arachas is brutal and fast, its sharp foreclaws lashing out at incredible speed. Skilled witches can actually parry these strikes and temporarily stun them. If both forelegs are raised and its mouth is exposed, the Arachas strikes with such force that no man or witcher alive can hope to stop it. This happens with such speed that the attack may still strike true even if the victim knows it's coming. Golden Oral is a must against all insectoids. Bites from Arachases are inherently venomous. Using can slow Arachases down just enough that melee combat is made simpler. Good bolts from a crossbow can be a great help against Arachases, particularly when their mouth is open wide. The armoured variant of Arachases can resist sword strikes even more so than the other species. The carapace surrounding their abdomens are particularly problematic. Venomous Arachases produce colossal amounts of toxin and deploy it during combat in many ways. Before striking, a venomous Arachas will cover its pincers and teeth with a thick coating of the deadly liquid. It will then squirt the venom at its opponent to weaken it, and once locked in direct combat, it will continuously spray this noxious ooze all around itself, meaning every breath brings its victim closer to death. Like other members of its species, venomous Arachases use prehensile feelers to grab and immobilize their prey. When attempting to fight such a creature, a witcher should drink Golden Oral, which will reduce the body's vulnerability to poison, and then attack from a safe distance with a crossbow or bombs before dealing the finishing blows with a silver sword enhanced with a coating of insectoid oil. Ghouls are hard to describe. In part, they resemble humans, yet on the whole, they are the utter negation of all that is human. Though they have arms and legs like men, they walk on all fours like dogs or badgers. Though they have eerie familiar faces. One searches them in vain for any signs of sentiment, reason, or even a spark of consciousness. They are driven by one thing and one thing only: the insatiable craving for human flesh. In a one-on-one fight with a trained witcher, a ghoul poses little threat, but one must remember that wounded individuals can erupt in a mad frenzy. At such times, they attack fiercely, paying no heed to their own safety and brushing off all wounds. One must likewise bear in mind that ghouls are particularly dangerous around dusk and at night. A key strategy to make fighting a group of ghouls easier is to keep moving around until one ghoul gets separated. When this happens, circle the ghoul and try to kill it. Do small attacks now and then, but keep dancing around. If a ghoul is low on health and starts snarling loudly, this is a sign that the ghoul is becoming enraged. Make this ghoul your priority to kill, as otherwise it will regenerate most of its health. When enraged, the ghoul's behaviour grows more aggressive. The Lgsi sign works well for stopping the effects for enragement. ALGHOULS differ from normal ghouls in size, strength, colouring, and most importantly, intelligence. Where ghouls are primitive creatures, unfit to plan even the simplest ambush, ALGHOULS are capable of forethought and are thus much more dangerous. During combat, ALGHOULS try risky maneuvers, aimed at knocking their opponents to the ground, so the others can finish the job by tearing them to shreds. Like normal ghouls, an injured Alghoul can fall into a frenzy and attack with blind fury. An experienced Witcher knows to get out of the way of such an occasion and strike from behind, while an inexperienced Witcher, such a turn of events often marks the end of his path. An Alghoul can emit a piercing scream to stun nearby victims, as well as sending nearby ghouls into a raging frenzy. When enraged, an Alghoul grows spines on its back. This makes attacking it a very dangerous proposition, as the spines are harmful if you use melee attacks. Lgsi forces the spines of an Alghoul to retract after a few seconds, with the added benefit of temporarily stunning the creature. ROTFIENDS and Devourers were once rarities, but in the present age of constant warfare and violence, they have become a plague, particularly around battlefields and disease-stricken areas. Though they feed mainly on carrion, they will at times attack the living. They usually feed in large groups and thus present a danger to lone travellers, especially considering their speed, which is more than a match for a horse at full gallop. The ROTFIEND's decomposing body is filled with gases, which are poisonous even to those who, like witches, are immune to most other toxins. These emissions are also highly flammable, meaning any spark, not to mention a carelessly cast ignisign, can lead to an explosion. When a ROTFIEND begins to spasm uncontrollably in place, it could be a sign that they're about to explode. It is not safe to stand near these creatures, nor is it wise to try slaying them with a silver sword in this state. They will more than likely explode, possibly ending a witless witch's career, since the explosion does a lot of damage if you're close to it. Igni can trigger ROTFIEND's explosions quicker. This can be a useful attribute to exploit when confronted by multiple ROTFIENDs. Their explosion will also affect enemies. When facing multiple ROTFIENDs, it is entirely possible to set off one and then get a series of explosions as others come into range. Fog is the traveller's foe. In the forest, it can make one lose one's way. At sea, it can send one sailing into rocks. Yet such dangers are nothing compared to the monsters known as FOGLETS, which sometimes lurk within. These creatures have powerful arms and claws, yet what makes them truly dangerous is their mastery of perception, beguilement, and disorientation. Many times they need not attack at all, instead simply drive their prey to madness, or into boggy marshlands, where, after a while, they will wait patiently for it to drown in the muddy waters. Rapidly thickening fog tends to be a sign that FOGLETS are close. Prepare Quen if the fog is accompanied by snarling. Note that without the use of signs or bombs, when a FOGLET is invisible, one can't harm them at all, so make good use of moon dust, Yrden and Ard to force their corporeal form to appear and do damage to them. Also note that, while they're invisible, paying attention to the more glowing part of the fog will indicate where they are, so you can prepare for their attack. It is possible to counterattack a FOGLET as they materialize to attack, a good way to begin your offensive. FOGLETs can also create illusions of themselves that can cause physical harm, while the real FOGLET stalks the area. Damaging the illusions disrupts them and can reveal the FOGLET's location. A drowner resembles a corpse dredged from the bottom of a pond. It is sickly blue or green in colour, with slime and sludge oozing out of every pore, and the acrid stench of rot wafting off it. That is why it is often thought drowners arise from the bodies of those who drowned in shallow waters. Like so many other beliefs about monsters, this one is false. While drowners do look like humans from a distance, witches who have the dubious pleasures of examining them from close quarters have reported the numerous ways in which their autonomy differs from our own. Their scaly skin, gills and dorsal fins suggest drowners and their like are an entirely foreign species. Drowners are predominantly pack creatures by nature, usually in groups of 3 or greater. You know they have spotted you if they burrow into the ground. This is a sure warning sign that they are preparing to ambush you, if you encroach further onto their territory. Drowners are quite weak to igni, susceptible to being lit afire and stunned while they screech in agony. When attacked by multiple drowners, it is possible to catch the pack in a Yrden trap, then blast the drowners with igni. You can counter-attack with claw swipes from a drowner, causing a bit of extra damage to them. However, this can be quite difficult when multiple drowners are attacking. Not only do they usually attack in numbers, their attacks are quite fast and have surprising range, as they usually do leap and jump strikes. Above all else, don't let yourself get surrounded by them. They can interrupt your counter-attacks with their own attacks. Drowners try to leap at a witcher from beneath the ground. Watch for disturbances at your feet and roll or dodge to safety. Drowners react to the death of their fellows by screaming in pain. This show of mourning leaves them defenseless for several seconds.
Sweetheart, fresh and scrumptious. Tell me a rhyme, then you'll get a prize, or a beating.
You're as lovely as...
As what? As what?
as rotten meat. And you're a monster, and I kill monsters.
Water hags, like the drowners, with whom they often share hunting grounds, dwell near shallow streams, rivers and wetlands. Though bulky, they are excellent swimmers. They can even swim through thick mud with astonishing agility, surfacing beside their victim to attack with their sickle-shaped claws. They are also able to form this mud into balls, which they toss to temporarily blind opponents. Water hags are particularly active and dangerous during rainstorms, conditions which furthermore hinder the use of the Igni sign, usually the most effective weapon against the moisture-loving creatures. The brutal power of the water hag may be familiar to those who have faced a grave hag, but possibly more threatening is their ability to throw balls of mud at the faces of their opponents in order to blind them. And they do this with frightening accuracy. Witches must keep their eyes focused on a water hag attempting this maneuver so they can evade it with time to spare. It may help to carry Dragon Dreams bombs. Combining them with a shot of Igni may set the hag on fire. Northern Wind bombs are another way to contain a water hag, freezing them and making them more susceptible to physical harm. Lgsi also works quite well on the water hag to stun it, letting you land multiple attacks on them.
Skulls he stole. My skulls. Ought to dig up his own.
There she is. Right on cue.
Few monsters named fit as well as the grave hags. As one might guess, these creatures resemble age-deformed women and loiter near graveyards and battlefields. Grave hags feed on human corpses, and in particular on the rotten marrow, which they slurp from human bones using their long, prehensile tongues. Once a hag has devoured all corpses within reach, she turns to killing men and burying them in cemeteries as she waits for them to decompose. Grave hags are territorial and aggressive when provoked, using their great speed to rapidly close on prey. You should always have Quen active and Yrden prepared to use in the event that a hag is spotted before combat begins. This provides the best chance to defend yourself. Stun and hit combat of Lgsi is also very effective. The tongue of a grave hag can surprise even veteran witches with the speed and range it can lash out. Being struck by it can temporarily blind you, leaving the victim unable to properly defend themselves. However, a well-timed counterattack can sever the tongue. While not vulnerable to Igni, igniting a grave hag can give a witcher a needed respite from the assault. The claws of a grave hag are sharp, but not enough that skilled swordsplay cannot defend against them. A well-timed parry can stop a maddened hag's claws. The followed-up counterattack can then open the Grave Hag up to successive silver sword blows. Black blood can be effective at stopping a Grave Hag that has gotten the best of a Witcher in the melee. This is another useful way to push back against the relentless assault. If while hiking high in the mountains you come across a walking stone, do not think your eyes deceive you. Instead, draw your sword, for before you stands a rock troll. True, not every encounter with these creatures ends in a fight. While not particularly intelligent, trolls are capable of reason, but it's better to be prepared for the worst. Otherwise your hike might not end at the summit, but in this stew. Trolls are able to use fire and simple tools, and some of them have even mastered the basics of common speech. In doing so, they have found that they are extremely fond of riddles, rhymes, and all sorts of wordplay. A fact a Witcher in possession of a bit of wit can use to his advantage. If a fight proves inevitable, one must watch out for the stones these trolls throw, with great strength and shocking precision. Their powerful, heavy fists also present a danger, so they can buckle even the sturdiest of breastplate. Since their backs are covered in layers of rocky growth, blows delivered from behind will not do them much damage. They must thus be fought directly, standing face to face, and preferably armed with a sword covered in a fresh coating of ogrin oil. If you stay in close, their attacks are actually quite short-ranged. Quen is your best choice combined with a fast attack dodge fighting style. Put in some hits, then dodge to the side to avoid most, if not all of their attacks. If you see them crouched down protecting their head with their arms, stop attacking. Like an earth elemental, this is a parry move that will do little damage, reflecting some of the attack on you, breaking your Quen in the process, and they will follow up with a strong slamming counter attack. Climbing to the top of a snow-covered peak is never a safe endeavour. One can slip and fall into a ravine, be buried in an avalanche, or stumble across ice trolls. Unlike the rock trolls found at lower altitudes, these permafrost-dwelling monsters treat every man they encounter as a possible ingredient for a tasty meal. Ice trolls are crueler than their rock kin. Though they use similar tactics in battle, tossing stones and swinging their mighty fists, they are heartier and stronger than rock trolls, and thus more dangerous. Like rock trolls, their backs are covered in thick, protective armour, meaning one should never strike from the rear. Meanwhile, their mass means that the hard side cannot move them. Lastly, never think of attacking them during a blizzard, as such times they draw power from the surrounding cold and fight with increased strength. A lone nekker is harmless. 5 are dangerous. 10 can kill even a veteran monster slayer. Particularly troublesome are the larger, stronger individuals known as warriors.
What now, you...
Nekkers always attack in groups and by surprise. They try to surround their prey as quickly as possible, cutting off all escape routes. Luckily, their attack is, for the most part, disorganized, for nekkers are not gifted with great courage, and individual nekkers will often hesitate before overcoming their fear of striking. When fighting them, one can use this moment of hesitation to kill the braver individuals before finishing off those who remain in the back. When facing a large group of nekkers, take advantage of bombs such as Northern Wind or Dancing Star. Sufficiently powerful explosions can help thin out nekkers' swarms with ease. Ard can knock a nekker to its back, allowing for swift execution. Ard can also knock over several nekkers at once, a good way to break through a large group of attackers. Cyclopses can easily be recognized by the single eye located in the center of their foreheads. If for some reason that is not visible, other telltale signs are the enormous size, incredible strength, and seething hatred for all humans. Cyclopses go where they want. Even a witcher should move to the side if a Cyclops is charging forward. The strongest witches cannot parry or block any punch or slash delivered by the Cyclops, and a melee hop backwards may not be enough to stay out of reach. Roll to the side or behind the Cyclops to evade their attacks and reach their vulnerable flanks. Do not stand in one place when fighting a Cyclops. They rarely flinch from anything a witcher can do to them, so they keep trying to fight no matter how many cuts from a silver blade they take. If a Cyclops raises both hands in the air, avoid being anywhere close to the front of it. The resulting ground pound flattens even the toughest of warriors. If you're at a longer range, Cyclopses can also leap into the air, knocking over anyone or anything too close to where they land. Alternatively, they may do a wild rush charge at you, swinging their arms madly while roaring. This, in particular, is almost impossible to avoid, as the Cyclops will change its direction mid-charge to try and intercept you if you try rolling out of the way. Lgsi can temporarily confuse a Cyclops, giving the Witcher time to recuperate while the creature rages at something else. Getting close to a Cyclops is dangerous, but still a necessity for slaying one. The Yrden sign can help Witchers do more work every time they get within sword's range of these monsters. Overall, Quen is probably your best choice for handling them.
Really want to see an angry witcher.
Do you?
Damn, I look old. Let's dance.
Dopplers, also known as changelings, are beings able to take on the form of any humanoid or animal they please. This transformation is no mere illusion, able to be shattered with a simple spell, but an authentic and complete metamorphosis. This means no protective amulets or witch's medallion will signal a Doppler's presence.
Make you fight like one.
When a Doppler assumes the form of its attacker, it gains some of its skill. In the case of a Doppler hunted by a witcher, he gains the ability to use the active shield mode of Quen, and can even use blasts of Igni. Additionally, the Doppler's swordplay is nearly on par with that of the witcher, as he can parry and strike just as swiftly. Be patient when fighting the Doppler. Do not attack when his active shield is clearly visible, as the resulting detonation can knock a witcher to the ground. Focus on counterattacks and parrying. A proper counter creates the best opportunity to land an attack or two of your own. Yrden and Lgsi both provide openings to exploit against the Doppler.
But first, take this as a token of my gratitude. So long, Witcher.
SYLVANS resemble men, not just in appearance but also in behaviour, though it must be said they have adopted more of our vices and weaknesses than strengths. Lazy by nature, they would gladly spend all day in idleness, puffing on a pipe, gorging on rich foods, and downing strong drinks. SYLVANS are deceptive in appearance, that they are fat and look clumsy hides almost abrupt amounts of physical strength. Melee combat against a Sylvan is difficult, even for a witcher. Evade the physical strikes from the Sylvan, do not attempt to parry or counterattack. Yrden can allow a witcher time to bring a silver sword into play, but a Sylvan can counter this by breathing intense flames and melt through the best armour. If close quarters combat is not going well, you should be prepared to make use of long range options. A powerful crossbow loaded with good bolts can keep you relatively safe while still effective at slaying this beast. CHORTS are the somewhat smaller kin of fiends, yet Any Witcher who thinks their diminutive status means they present no danger commits a grave error, the kind that can end his career permanently. These denizens of dark and ancient woods are some of the most dangerous monsters known to man. CHORTS fight with little finesse, running straight towards their opponent and trying to knock him to the ground with the force of their charge. After downing their foe, they bite, kick and strike with the claw-tipped paws. Due to their size and four-legged posture, they are mostly unaffected by the force of the Ard sign, and the regenerative powers of their body allow any wounds they receive to heal at a rapid pace. A stand-up fight against a Chort is not an option, even for a Witcher. Use their size and speed against them. Bait them to charge, roll aside and hope they run headlong into something they can't just charge through. While they recover from this mishap, you can freely cut into their flank. A less direct tactic involves using Devil's Puff Bombs to poison the Chort. If you can drag it through the toxic fumes, it will breathe in the poison and ideally help resolve the fight sooner. Although not weak to fire itself, it is very weak to being burned. Fiends are walking mountains of muscle, capped with horned, tooth-filled heads. They live in thick forests, swamps and bogs. When possible they avoid humans, but when not possible they kill them, and without much difficulty. Their size alone makes fiends extremely dangerous. One blow from their powerful paws can kill a knight, along with its fully armoured mount. Their enormous heft also makes them invulnerable to Ard. Even witches specialising in the power of signs cannot move one, even an inch. Furthermore, any wounds they receive heal at lightning speed. If that weren't trouble enough, fiends need not rely on their strength and stamina alone when fighting. They can also call on a more refined weapon, the third eye located in the centre of their forehead, which they can use to draw their prey into a state of hypnosis. During these times, the victim does not see anything beyond the single burning eye, the last thing they see before their death. A fiend's only weakness is its fear of loud noises. Bombs such as Devil's Puff are thus quite effective when fighting these monsters. Furthermore, a blade covered in relic oil can increase a witch's chance of victory, or at least of walking away from the fight. Leshens dwell in dense primeval woods. Fiercely territorial creatures, they hunt with stealth and cunning as their only companions. They use their inborn magic to control the plants and animals within their territory, and so when stalking them, half the battle is merely getting near enough to strike. Leshens old enough to earn the title Ancient wield advanced skills and tactics that make them particularly dangerous. When facing a Leshen, watch for them to dig their root-like arms into the ground. This is a sign that they are commanding the roots to strike. This attack has surprising range, does heavy damage, hits a reasonable sized area, and can only be foiled by rolling away from it. Leshens are slow, but powerful melee fighters, and can cause serious injury if allowed. Dodge or roll away from their swipes of their claws. They also have the ability to turn into smoke form. They will raise both arms above their head and with a swirl of dark smoke disappear. Note, while doing this, any attacks on them will be at least partially reflected and will break when. Moon dust bombs can prevent them from transforming. Igni and any bombs that can potentially cause fire damage, such as Dragon's Dream, are useful against Leshens. While a Leshen burns, it will be unable to defend itself. Wraiths suffer endless, indescribable pain. Filled with anger and a sense of having been wronged, they both envy the living and brim with overwhelming hatred for them. Wraiths can turn immaterial and are at times very difficult to wound. One can, however, force them to resemble a physical presence by trapping them with the Yrden sign or by hitting them with the silver from a moon dust bomb. As with any such ghostly being, one should fight them using a silver sword, preferably one smeared with a thick coat of spectre oil. Relatively fast frontline melee fighters, Wraiths can do serious damage if they get in close. They do turn incorporeal occasionally, but this serves more as a short-range teleportation than anything else. If they do teleport while they are somewhat close to you, dodge in any direction. They like to teleport right next to you and immediately start swinging, inflicting heavy damage in an instant if they catch you. Skilled witches have been able to counter a Wraith sword with their own silver blades, even while they are incorporeal.
Let's dance.
Noon Wraiths do not bleed, and are for the most part immune to the effects of witcher signs. They can create mirror images of themselves which circle their victim in a kind of morbid parody of dance. This ghastly ritual drains their victim's life energy while adding to their own strength. Noon Wraiths are also able to manipulate the physical world to a limited degree, kicking up clouds of dust which temporarily blind and disorientate their opponent. Noon Wraiths can turn immaterial and at such times very difficult to wound. In order to force a Noon Wraith to take corporal form, one must first trap it with a Yrden sign, or strike it with a moon dust bomb. Once the monster has regained physical presence, one can mount a fast attack with a silver blade, preferably one coated in spectre oil. Compared to other creatures of the night, night wraiths might not seem all that dangerous. After all, one might ask, how much harm can a pale, withered woman in a tattered dress do? The answer? Quite a bit. Instead of finding this out the hard way, avoid crossing fields and meadows at night at all costs. Night wraiths favour the dark. If you seek to claim a bounty on the night wraith, you have to meditate until the moon hangs in the sky. Unfortunately, this is also when the night wraith is at its strongest. If you are patient, you can find a night wraith during the day, when it is at its weakest. Mostly incorporeal, a night wraith can be made corporeal either through Yrden or moon dust bombs. When forced to become corporeal, silver sword can be employed to finish the wraith off. They are susceptible to spectre oil. When weakened, a night wraith can split into 3 copies of itself. Bombs and crossbow bolts can destroy night wraith doppelgangers, but do so in all haste, as during this state, the night wraith saps vital energy from nearby sources. Destroying these copies forces the real night wraith to reveal itself.
I think you're lying. Question is, why? To protect
A plague maiden, also known as a pester, is one of the most insidious wraiths a witcher can come
I
across.
can't help you.
When provoked, a
Taking
pester
anything
calls
this
forth
cursed
clouds of
island from
plague-ridden
any cursed
insects
place
that
just
seek out
too
their
dangerous.
foes. The insect clouds can be destroyed with Igni or a slice of a silver sword. Ard can push the clouds back. Plague Maidens have fewer overt weaknesses compared to other wraiths, but are still vulnerable to Yrden. This can help keep the maiden still while you strike with a silver sword, but it also means you will be swarmed by the plague clouds. Ekimaras are unusually cruel and exceptionally swift. They are able to quickly land blow after blow, capable of smashing even the best armour into tiny shreds. They should be fought with a silver sword, remembering that they can regenerate back health over time. One should thus never attempt to tire them out, or gods forbid, wait for it to bleed to death. Instead, cut them down as quickly as possible, and if possible, burn the body to ash and scatter it to the four winds. Ekimaras are especially dangerous foes due to their ability to regenerate. They can even outlast a witcher using the finest potions. Black blood potions are an effective way to weaken an Ekimara. If you are stricken by their claws, you will bleed heavily. Black blood can harm the Ekimara and knock it back, allowing you a brief respite from its assault. Dodging is essential when fighting Ekimaras. Their claws cannot be parried, and even if black blood is an available witcher brew, it is best to avoid being wounded altogether, if you can help it. Catacans are the embodiment of human fear. They hide in the shadows, they feed on blood. They resemble enormous bats, though with long fans and even longer talons. And, as if that weren't terror enough, they can turn invisible, waiting unseen while dread of their unpreventable attack overwhelms their victim. Catacans are invulnerable to steel, regenerate quickly, hear acutely, and move at incredible speed. To even the odds, one can temporarily immobilize Catacans using the Yrden sign, then seize the moment to attack with all one's might, for there might not be another chance. Catacans are notably smarter and more powerful than Ekimaras. Their power only increases at night, and so a witcher should take additional precautions if they hunt one at those late hours. Alternatively, the witcher should wait for daylight, so the Catacan's natural regeneration is impaired. Yrden's sign is one of the most valuable tools when hunting a Catacan, undoing its invisibility, allowing a witcher to feed them a silver sword. Another way to draw out a Catacan from invisibility is through the use of Igni, fire-starting bombs, and moon dust. One should remember that a Catacan is far more likely to damage the Witcher than the Witcher is to damage him, so having black blood handy is just the thing to return the favour.
What are you?
A vampire. Higher, of course.
An exceedingly rare opponent for a Witcher, higher vampires possess nearly unmatched strength and intelligence among all foes one could face. When they are transformed into their beast-style state, evasion is key to surviving the encounter, but this is made difficult due to their speed. Higher vampires also favour striking while invisible, appearing only when they are an eye blink away from striking their claws into a victim. This makes Yrden absolutely vital, both for revealing the vampire and also keeping it in place long enough to cut it down with a silver sword, ideally coated in vampire oil. Igni is one of the few real weaknesses a higher vampire possesses. Use it if you can. If it catches on fire, it will be stunned for a brief moment. Black blood is useful, but comes with the obvious risks of allowing the vampire to draw blood in the first place. Do not rely on it to save you. It is best to have Quen prepared to absorb a blow. Then cast Yrden to keep the monster in place for your silver sword. Even defeating a higher vampire in combat does not guarantee it will stay dead, as wounds, even critical, will heal in given time. Thanks for sticking around and getting to know your enemy straight out of The Witcher 3. Don't forget to hit me up and subscribe to my channel for more enemy meet and defeat action. And remember, here it's game time all the time.